This at 425. Dan Lanning was hot today. I really like him. Like him a lot. Dan Lanning does not mince words. When it comes to NIL, do we have a lot more than everybody else? That'd be an exaggeration. We'd never lose. Everyone else right now is focused on our ice cream cone. And if I'm busy looking at theirs, that means mine's melting.
Yeah, I like this. Smokey, when you and I started working together, there were some people who tried to upstart and maybe do a sports talk show or something like that. And it was we never paid them any mind. And that was kind of your advice to me as a young broadcaster was you can't worry about what they're doing. We can only worry about what we're doing. And I think that does, especially when it comes to NIL, not necessarily recruiting. When it comes to how much NIL money you have, the only thing you need to really know is how much do I need? And, what are the going rates? But if you're sitting there going, oh, man, are we going to catch up to Ohio State? Or are we going to Texas just gave this guy all this much. Then you're probably not focusing on what you really need to. And if you don't have the money to get a guy, you don't have the money to get a guy. But you still are going to go and raise that money.
Yeah, first of all, he practiced that line for sure. I wonder how long he practiced that and how long it took him to come up with that. But it's a good line. So it was worthwhile saving that up for media days. That was also the case when we started this show. We weren't so much worried about what our old place was doing, but I think that was something where they were definitely probably looking at us like, what are they up to over there, And I think that's what Dan Lanning is getting at. To your point, Paul, is you can't be worried about what everybody else is doing. Ultimately, you've got to be worried about yourself, and I think he's got the right mindset there, and that's the mindset everybody should have regardless of their NIL stacks. But, yeah, you can't help but understand, too, to some extent that there are teams in the Big Ten or teams that just go head-to-head with Oregon regularly that can't avoid the stack of, NIL dollars that Nike and others have provided Oregon with. But that's just something you've got to, fight against and find a way to beat on occasion. But, you can't sit there and dwell on that. So Oregon's got to worry about Oregon, and that's what he's doing, and it seems to be working really well for them right now.
There was another quote from him. I don't have it in front of me, but another quote that was asked about it. He goes, you wonder about Kirby Smart in Georgia and other programs. That's where he used to be, always having these number one ranked recruiting classes. So I guess that's amazing that they're doing that without any NIL. They didn't take a shot at his old boss. He also made this comment, couple of 3 or 4 rat-a-tat-tat from the Big Ten. Dan Lanning, we're mighty different. I hope we get to take that big floating duck all the way to the away games. We're innovative.
Take the floating duck to all of our away games.
Yeah,
we're innovative. That's something we said yesterday. It was a good idea to have that big inflatable rubber ducky that they had out there on the river, and certainly got a lot of attention on social media and a lot of play around Big Ten Media Days. And, that's the word that I would think of when I think of Oregon as innovative, whether that was Dan Lanning or, prior to him in multiple instances. So they are going to bring something unique to the Big Ten, and that's from uniforms to their, just style of play to their attitude and obviously their place on the map. So, I'm looking forward to Oregon. It's still kind of washing over me that they're in the Big Ten now, but it's starting to become, sort of like I'd say that they were it's starting to sink in. It's starting to become commonplace to just refer to the Big Ten with them, but it's still going to be unofficial until they roll out there on the field for the first time with those logos and, they're playing Ohio State or something. I think it's going to take a little while for that to sink in, but they definitely bring something different. They definitely bring something along with the others, but them in particular that makes the Big Ten more exciting, I think. Brings a nice fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, they've had teams like Ohio State who can score, et cetera, but this is a different type of animal here. Mm-hmm. And I look forward to seeing how they do, and it gives them kind of a nice little pick-me-up, a little adrenaline rush just because of what Oregon brings to the table.
Okay, here's where they would go. They're going on the road, and I don't know if the bodies of water in these places can support a gigantic floating duck, but I would assume that there's some water near Corvallis, Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Look, there's plenty of water in L.A., maybe not near the Rose Bowl per se, but they're going to play at UCLA, so
Corvallis is right on a river, by the way.
Yeah, so yes, yeah.
It's like directly on a river.
Yeah, so Corvallis on the
They're
river.
the Beavers.
Yeah.
A beaver and a duck fight.
Yeah, Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl is in L.A. There's the ocean there. I'm sure they could put it at the Santa Monica Pier.
Miles
Bit
away.
is away. That's,
But yeah,
but
even still,
you can kind of see it from Pasadena.
Yeah,
I guess,
but I don't know what like Pasadena where
out
you
of
drop
Lincoln
it.
Riley's backyard.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's more
yeah.
inland and up for
So-
LA. But yeah, no, you can. I think you can. There's probably somewhere around there where you can see the ocean from a ways away.
The Rose Bowl isn't really close to UCLA's campus either.
No,
so,
it's not.
I mean, so they also go to Purdue, West Lafayette, and they go to Ann Arbor, and they go to Camp Randall. So around there, I'm sure there's a
Well, you got all those lakes up in that area.
Yeah,
I
Michigan.
mean,
You got
West
somewhere you
Lafayette's
can,
on a river.
Yeah, so you can probably drop it somewhere.
You can land, FedEx it, and then have somebody there to blow it up when they get outside wherever they are to put it on the water. PJ Fleck, one of Paul's favorite people.
Now that I'm looking at this, like every one of these cities are on a river. Like Ann Arbor is right there on a river as well. So yeah, I actually think there is something to the inflatable
I
duck
wonder
being
how
able
many
to
of the
travel around.
stadiums are actually on the river, because remember now, Knoxville, Baylor.
Well, hell, are they doing the Baylor, Oregon? Is that home and home, or is that?
Yeah, I think
it's
it
home
is.
and home.
Yeah, that's home
It's
and
like a
home.
split time
Put
period.
it,
Yeah.
put it right
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. We'll do our show on it.
Yeah.
Minnesota's PJ Fleck, who's a little bit quirky, but has done a nice job
Yeah.
with them. I'm not for everybody.
This is the first thing he's ever said that I agree with. He's not for me. He's an excellent coach. I'm not going to knock that. And he does more with less than most. I mean, that's good. I just the Tony Robbins stuff I just can't jive with. I just can't do it. I cannot. He's like one of those, CDs people used to listen to. Maybe they still do, like podcasts in their cars about, if you can dream it, you can do it, kind of a thing. I don't know. I just don't go in for that.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, is he still like that? I couldn't even tell you. I have not
he's
paid
pretty
much
hyper.
attention.
Pretty hyper.
Yeah, no, I know he's still hyper, but I don't know as far as like the motive. I just haven't listened to much of his interviews and stuff. Like when he still had hair and he was the big hot to trot before he took the Minnesota job. Like I remember seeing tons of him then. I watched Minnesota a few times, but I haven't paid much attention to him since he's gone bald and been there for a while. But I know Paul always had an issue with his style, but yeah, I don't know if he leans into that as much as he used to. I genuinely don't know. So yeah, if he does, I can see where that would still be something that's definitely not for everybody. He's different. He dresses different. He's got a different style about him. So yeah, he's not for everybody. But as long as he's from Minnesota, that's really all that matters.
Well, as long as he's winning there and then taking into bowl games. Okay, a couple of more quotes. A lot from Washington. Dave Softy Mahler, our buddy. Washington, this is, which one do you have there, Garrett?
Right here, we got the scholarships.
Okay, so Washington, this is pretty amazing. They are down so much. They have 21 of 22 new starters, entire new coaching staff that has never been done before. And then, of course, it's a reboot, as Jed Fish was saying, an absolute reboot. I put attention to Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, even obviously what's going on with Brennan at Arizona, among some of the other coaching changes. But I completely forgot that Washington was completely wiped out because of great players moving on to the next level and or some of them moving.
Well, that's kind of weird you'd forget that because they're right at the center of the entire Saban retirement because
No, that's what I'm saying.
like,
You look at what Alabama's been able to hold it together compared to Washington was just basically torched. I didn't know they had just one star. I thought they had 5 or 7, but everyone's gone. Yeah.
They got cooked. They were going to lose a lot anyways. When you're talking about Roma Dunze and Michael Penix and Jalen Polk and so on and so forth, they were already a team with a lot of veteran guys. So, yeah, that was going to be an adjustment regardless. But then you add in all of a sudden the Bama job opening up, DeBoer getting that, those who followed him, just the natural transition of programs changing head coaches. And, yeah, Washington, I think, is a real wild card. You think that Jeff Fish is going to eventually do well there. But as good of a season he had at Arizona, like he didn't bring Tedero McMillan. He brought some guys that are pretty good players with him, but he didn't bring everybody. And so, yeah, I think Washington's really a team that is kind of under the radar, but maybe deserve it. I don't know, because I don't know that anybody really understands what to expect from them, especially in a Big Ten landscape.
All right, here's a couple other notes about Washington. With Kalen DeBoer, the first year, obviously, only one starter off last year's team. On his staff are two guys, familiar fathers, defensive coordinator Steve Belichick and son of Bill, and offensive coordinator Brennan Carroll, who's Pete Carroll's son. So that's a part of his staff, too. 46 new scholarship players, one starter back. And then Fish said, let's not forget, though, this is from our buddy Softy, Washington football has beaten Oregon the last 3 times we played. We've beaten Texas the last 2 times we played, and USC the last 2 times. And we've played, and we're coming off winning 25 of 28 games. Now, a lot of those guys are gone, but he's trying to still say, listen, we're not some one-year wonder, but a lot of the ones that won 25 of 28, of course, are no longer with the program.
Yeah, you know who didn't win any of those games?
Jed Fish.
Yeah, Jed Fish didn't win any single one of those games he just talked about. But I understand he's got to promote the brand and his program, and that's what that program has done. So, yeah, you're right. That is what Washington has been able to do. So he has a point there. But, yeah, it doesn't take but a second to tear through that point and go, well, you had nothing to do with any of that. You just got here.
Yep.
I do think, though, it speaks to just Washington's ability to compete at the highest level and compete with the quote-unquote big boys that always get mentioned before they get mentioned, for example. I think Washington is one of those schools, too, that even though they just played in the Natty, you start listing off, like, who are the elite programs? It takes a while to get to Washington. You mentioned Oregon before them. You mentioned USC before them. You mentioned Michigan. You mentioned Ohio State. You probably mentioned Penn State. I don't know how many others you mentioned, but that's at least 5 schools before you get to them in their own conference. So, yeah, Washington's a program that's been very successful. They just haven't necessarily broken through all the way since the early 90s in that Natty. But they've been pretty good, and there's fair reason to believe that once they get their feet underneath them, that Jed Fish can have them, humming along and doing the same things that Kalen DeBoer had them doing.
So you guys can tell me this. I saw this story. We have a group text, and then the emails we send, and Garrett gets a lot of them, so if we put them up on the screen, what in the hell's going on with the cat fight in Wisconsin?
So Wisconsin beat Illinois last year, and it was late. It was in the 4th quarter, and the touchdown should not have counted because they had a lineman lined up as a tackle eligible, but he put on like another jersey, which they do in college, because I guess, so lined up as a tackle eligible, caught the pass, won the game, and he did not report because as he had switched his number, which is what the rule is, and the referees ruled it a touchdown. Illinois lost the game. Brett Bielema has not forgotten this at all and won't talk to Luke Fickell. I guess blames Luke Fickell for the officials and all that, but won't talk to him. They asked Luke Fickell about it, and he said, is this why he won't talk to me? Brett Bielema still steamed about it. He tried to get the game overturned, as a matter of fact. He went as far as to request that from the Big Ten. But
Did the Colorado-Missouri game, the 5th down that Colorado scored on, did that ever get overturned?
No. I mean, again, nothing's going to get overturned ever, right? It's not, it would have to be
egregious.
I mean, look, ridiculous.
Beyond,
Not human error of, he forgot we missed this call, because if you're going to overturn it for a missed call, then you say, well, there was holding on the play before or on the one they scored. So that's a slippery slope. But yes, so now, I mean, they're already, conference rivals in the Big Ten. I wouldn't say Wisconsin versus Illinois is one that people all gather around their TV for, like the game, Michigan and Ohio State. But it's very interesting to me. I hope that it stays simmering. I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that Brett Bielema up and left Wisconsin to go to Arkansas, and then when he goes back, now they don't say, hey, you were great here, we love you. Like, no, you left. And I think that part of it is there too.
They've been playing since 1895.
Yeah.
So it's a bigger
it's a
for
bigger
them. Yeah. So,
but I enjoy. I'm here for it.
25-21 Wisconsin last year. 18 points in the 4th quarter, Craig.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I think that Illinois shouldn't have choked away the fourth quarter, and I also think that there was a bad call made, and Wisconsin benefited from that because they, got away with it basically. So it is what it is. That happens. I don't have a dog in the fight. I understand where Bielema was coming from, and I can understand where Wisconsin's, able to just laugh, enjoy their win, and enjoy how much he's still just, perturbed by it. So that should make for, a little bit of heat that otherwise, I don't know, not Big Ten historical, fan over here, so I don't know Wisconsin-Illinois' bad blood history, like you said. But
they played for a wooden steel pipe or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
I'm kidding. No.
Okay, well, I would have believed you. So, I really, like I said, I don't pay attention as far as, didn't grow up in that area and know those types of rivalries inside and out. So, for the outsider, which is what I'm getting at, it makes that more interesting if they do play. They're not playing this year. So you're going to have to carry this over a good bit. But, anything that adds a little spice to some non-Michigan versus Ohio State, Penn State combination matchups and can make something a little bit unique in an impromptu rivalry or something that just, adds on to something that was already there. I think head coaching rivalries are always good. I think they're healthy, and I think they're interesting. So, give me Bielema versus Fickle beefing with each other, and then I guarantee you I have way more interest in watching Wisconsin-Illinois next year than I would have in any other, circumstance, really. So, bring it on. All
right, so let's go. One more note on the Big Ten. Scott Dockerman is actually the one that had the note, but this is a response from Sean Callahan, who covers Nebraska. 2025 budget submitted to regions. Iowa Athletics lists $75.2 million coming from the Big Ten this year, $61.82 a year ago. The Big Ten payouts, that means it's going to jump from $61.82 to $75.2 million this year. This is the increase in the college football playoff, among some other things. Nebraska, back 15 years ago, made $19 million. Now, there's inflation and a lot of that stuff, but it puts in perspective when people talk about, they suck. But, man, they're going to the bank just like some other schools that have changed conferences. But $75 million. That's about $35 million more than the Big 12 distributed, which is part of what we've known about, talked about for quite some time since a lot of these TV contracts were redone.
Well, now that Florida State and Clemson are in the Big 12, that still hasn't happened, has it? No, that's the growing gap that you've worried about, and it's kept you up at night if you're athletic directors in the Big 12 or in the Pac-12 when, that was still ongoing, and now it's down to 2, and so I'm sure it's still, certainly bothers the Oregon State and Washington State side of things more than anybody right now, since they're the ones that are sort of teetering on autonomy status to begin with. But, certainly in the ACC, that's a big topic of conversation. So, and that trickles on down. If you're not in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're at a money disadvantage, and not just a few million, but like several million, double-digit $1 million every single year. And there is only so much that those teams can pay for their rosters, and there's only so many cute things they can put on their stadium to stand out, but they aren't going to be facing probably as much of a crunch when it comes to their other sports as what you're facing. And so that just how much does that tilt the advantage, not just in football, but like in baseball and basketball, when there's so much leftover money that you don't need another waterfall. You don't need another Lamborghini. Like you have all that in football. Now you're buying your baseball team. You're buying your basketball team. Like how much can schools that are 20 million, 25 million, whatever the number 17 million is behind, can you compete with that on a year-to-year basis, and for how long before that becomes unsustainable? And I think that's what a lot of people are wondering right now. Or maybe it is sustainable. Maybe all that extra money, like you still have to have the right coach. You still have to have the right leadership and all that, but at least initial recruiting stages, you're going to get the guys who maybe go to Illinois because they got tempted by the NIL originally, and then, hey, you don't see playing time, so they want to transfer to Texas Tech or something. Like, you're still going to find players because players want to play ultimately, even though some of them just want to get paid maybe originally. But, where does that money gap really start to stretch things out to where it doesn't matter how much you try to keep up. It's just a never-ending pursuit that doesn't get you anywhere, and that's the fear right now, I think, for a lot of schools.
All right, we've got Manny Navarro coming up at 3:30. He covers the ACC, but also covers Miami. I'm going to push the Tennessee Stadium pictures back. Let's go to a quote from Lincoln Riley. He was asked yesterday about the Notre Dame rivalry and asked about does he hope to keep it. I would love to. I know it means a lot to a lot of people. The purist in you, no doubt, Now, if you get in a position where you got to make a decision on what's best for SC to help us win, and then, of course, what he's talking about is possibility of these games not being there. I would hate to see that happen. I have some great memories of just a kid watching Notre Dame and USC. He then went on to say this on future scheduling. Alabama was ahead of the curve for years. They didn't schedule for their fans. They scheduled to win championships. Now, okay, we know about Alabama. They played, Texas 2 years ago was the first time they'd been outside the state in a non-conference game in forever as far as a true road game. But they used to play pretty good neutral site games. They played 20th ranked Wisconsin, 20th ranked USC, 3rd ranked Florida State, 3rd ranked Louisville, 14th ranked Miami, 11th ranked Texas. So it's not like so Lincoln Riley said that.
I can go back to 2007 and say, here's Alabama's non-conference opponent. FSU, Clemson, Va-Tech, Penn State. All right, at Duke in 2010, not great. At Penn State.
Yep.
Michigan, Va-Tech, West Virginia, Wisconsin, USC, Florida State, Louisville, Duke again, Miami, at Texas. Yep. I don't think they're running from anybody.
He was mentioned in the college football playoff time period, but you're right. The other thing is this: Lincoln Riley is 18-12 against ranked teams in his career. Nick Saban was 80-23.
Yeah,
ranked teams 80-23.
There's a lot of things that have popped out of Lincoln Riley in the last 15 months or so. Getting after a reporter, putting up his horrible cooking, and then, of course,
he said it was a bad camera angle.
No,
he really did.
He did say that. He did say it was
definitely not that. It was definitely not the reason. Then, you say this don't schedule for the fans. They do schedule. Look, the SEC is where they get to do that. But Nick Saban didn't run away from anybody. Nick Saban never got caught either. And look, if Alabama was trying to schedule a game and it didn't happen because Nick Saban said, I don't want to do it, guess what? It never got out, right? So, Lincoln Riley
I guarantee you he never said that.
Yeah, exactly. Lincoln Riley trying to get out of the LSU thing is the reason he's answering these questions because he tried to get out of the LSU game.
And even some think he left for USC out of Oklahoma knowing the SEC was around the corner and didn't want to deal with that.
Just go win, man. Just go win. And you're going to have to beat good teams to get there. So
yeah, I'm an Oklahoma fan, so I really liked Lincoln Riley, and I've found myself liking him less and less the last couple of years. There's just something very crybaby about him. There's something that screams, "Give me the easiest path possible," because I don't want to go down the hard road. Whether that be leaving Oklahoma just as they're about to join the SEC, which, hey, look, man. I've been to Norman, Oklahoma. I think it's charming. I actually like Norman a lot. I think for a college town, it's great. But give me Southern California any day of the week if I'm making head coach at USC salary money, and give me Lincoln Riley's house. For sure. I can understand from that aspect of, quality of life, or you just have a dream to live out in L.A. That's understandable because that's a brand that's on par with Oklahoma. There are maybe a handful that are, historically. USC is one of those. USC is one of the only ones that can go, here's our national championship case, here's our Heisman Trophy case, and actually, have an argument, if not a better argument. So him leaving is one thing, but then all the other stuff since, the LSU scheduling deal, his comments today, when Alabama clearly hasn't ran away from anybody. I just listed off who they have played. Here's who they're going to play: Wisconsin, FSU and West Virginia in 2 years in the non-con. West Virginia and Ohio State and Oklahoma State in 28, Oklahoma State and Notre Dame in 29, Notre Dame and Georgia Tech in 30. Now, those could all change, but those are two really good schools every year moving like forward.
That. Yeah,
and I don't want to prop up the evil empire, and we don't bow down to all things SEC, but somehow Lincoln Riley's managed to make them look like the good guy in this, because why is he sniping at them, especially when it's not even accurate? I don't get what he's going for here, other than to try to make him, in his weak attempts to have the easiest path possible, look better. Because if you don't say, well, Alabama was doing it too, then everybody's clearly going to look at you and go dude, you're kind of a wuss with this. You're backing out of games. You're trying to talk yourself out of having harder schedules. And yeah, I don't like the impressions I've gotten from him the last couple of years, and I think he's done himself no further favors at Big Ten Media Days with his comments because, yeah, I really don't get this one or why even including Alabama in that conversation because I don't feel like they've run from anything.
I always have thought USC, we got a break from Manny because he's also taken his family on vacation following the ACC Media Days, but I always thought USC played a hell of a schedule. They had Notre Dame as a non-conference game and a couple of others, but so there we are with Lincoln Riley. More to go to. Tennessee has unveiled plans to do a lot, not just with their stadium, but around the stadium. Also, there's a list that's out, the fastest players in college football entering the year. We'll have that and so much more. Manny is next on not just Miami, but the ACC with the newbies coming in with Cal, Stanford, and SMU. And this is 365 Sports.